And we'll just dive in by starting with how you guys got started on your instruments. So if you each kind of want to do that in whatever order you want to do is great.
Go ahead, Chi-Chen.
Okay, so I started to study piano when I was 5. And back then I didn't really know what piano was. But my father is a classical music lover. And then he went to a lot of concerts, he still goes. And so he was the one who suggested that I started to study piano. And I started when I was 5.
Okay. Well, I started when I was basically a toddler, but starting is relative. I think I could sort of carry the violin around. And this, I don't remember this, but according to my parents, we went to a Christmas party and somebody gave the host at the party a little toy violin, and somehow I ended up running around with it and playing with it during that party. And I was 2.5, and I somehow got this bee in my bonnet that I really wanted to play the violin. And I hadn't really begged for things apparently in the past, but my parents said I just would not let it rest. And so my mom called around to try to find somebody that would take a little person on violin. And she found a woman in Charlotte, where I grew up, who had heard about this new thing called the Suzuki method. And she sent away to Japan for the materials. And I started when I was just about 3. But it was before, that's so long ago, I can't remember.
Well, I have to say that the cello is not my dream instrument to begin. I really wanted to play the trumpet, and I did. I thought I was really great when I was like 5 years old, 6, so on. And when I turned 11, I went to look at my birthday presents, and the trumpet was gone, and there was a cello there instead. So I started playing the cello after that and fell in love with it. And I think my parents loved it a lot more than the trumpet.
I bet they did. John, you said you grew up in Charlotte, North Carolina?
My parents still live there, and I get back whenever I can. But
Awesome.
Yeah, so I grew up in Charlotte, and then I went to North Carolina School of the Arts in high school and did my undergraduate there. And then I taught at UNCG for 10 years before we moved out here to Wyoming. So lots of strong North Carolina connections.
That's fantastic. So can you talk a little bit about how the trio was formed?
Okay, so many people know that John and I are married. We've been married for such a long time that it's 30 years already. And all that time we've been playing together and searching for just the right companion to make beautiful piano trio music. And we moved to the University of Wyoming about 15 years ago. They offered us both positions at the same time. It was an offer we couldn't refuse. And then shortly after that, we hired Chi-Chen Wu, who's just a phenomenal pianist. And we've been making beautiful music ever since.
That's awesome. Can you guys, one of you or all of you, pick one of the pieces on the program and just kind of talk a little bit about, what to listen for, why you guys chose it, kind of all of that stuff?
Well, let's see. I think we're starting with the Dumpke Trio. Not on the program. So Dvorak, as you may know, Bohemian composer, he wrote this piece in 1891, and for Dvorak, it was a real turning point for him in terms of the form of the piece. This piece is in 6 movements. The first 3 are attacca, they fit together, but really the whole piece fits together almost like a rhapsody of some kind. And this dumki, comes from the Ukrainian word duma, which is a kind of lamentation ballad of people who have been oppressed, which I just learned kind of studying up on this piece. But so the material is always alternating between very serious kind of solemn material, and then it will break into rustic sort of folk dance type material, and that alternation kind of goes throughout the whole piece in a very organic way. Normally the piece is supposedly in E minor, but it only starts in E minor. It goes through all kinds of keys, C sharp minor and D minor, and the piece ends in C major. So he's not really bound to the kind of typical classical form. So that's kind of interesting. But as you say, it's one of the great pieces in all the trio repertoire, and none of us had ever played it before. And we were looking at things we wanted to do next. We thought, we've got to learn the Dumpke Trio. So here we are. So we're looking forward to introducing it to Greensboro audiences as we've gotten to know it over the last months and weeks.
I didn't realize that that was a Ukrainian word. That's kind of cool and very timely right now, right?
I know it is. And the other thing I'll mention is that he wrote this in 1891, and in 1892 was the year that he was contracted to come to the U.S. to take over the leadership of the National American Conservatory of Music in New York. And the premiere of the Dumpke Trio was so successful that he did a farewell tour of 40 concerts, something like that, in 1892, just before he left for the U.S. So it's kind of you can almost think of it as sort of a poignant sort of farewell for a while anyway, to Bohemia, Moravia.
We are always looking for new pieces to perform, and we discovered her music and just fell in love with it. It's so beautiful. Elena Katz-Chernin is a living woman composer. She lives in Australia. She was born in Uzbekistan, and her style is kind of romantic minimalism, if you could imagine those two things combined. And this piece that we're playing, The Spirit and the Maiden, is a very, very beautiful piece that loosely follows this Uzbeki folk story, which we can explain at the concert. But the movements unfold with the story, and the music goes along with it, and it's very, very beautiful and powerful music.
So then I'll talk a little bit about the Mendelssohn D minor trio.
Perfect.
Unlike the Katz-Chernin piece, which has a story to tell, this trio doesn't have a narrative, but I would encourage the audience to appreciate this piece from the perspective of emotions and moods. So it has 4 movements. The first movement is dark, unsettled, a little bit turbulent, and then it develops to a very passionate mood. And the second movement is like Mendelssohn's songs without words, very sweet and dolce. After the piano presents the theme, then you're gonna hear a beautiful duet between the strings. And the third movement is funny, playful, and it's very, very challenging for the 3 of us because the tempo is super fast. And I like to tell this joke. A lot of time I feel my fingers are running away from me, like I have to catch them because the tempo is just super fast. And then that's where the humor rises. Then it ends with like a very fast scale, and then everything just flies away. The last one starts out as a dark march, and then you hear the repetitive rhythm going on throughout in the piano part. And then at the end, the dark mood turns out to be a glorious happiness and triumphant mood. So those are the moods I would encourage the audience to listen for. It does present a rich variety of emotions.
So do you guys have a favorite performance memory or a favorite place that you performed?
Go ahead, Beth.
Well, I think the 3 of us, just this time last March, we were making our New York City debut in Carnegie Hall. And that was just a super experience. We had a wonderful audience, and we all played about as well as we could. And that the feeling of everyone coming together just at the right time was just pretty remarkable.
And we had a lot of friends who kind of converged in New York City from all different places to come to the concert. That was really fun too.
Right.
So a lot of different people get to Carnegie Hall a lot of different ways besides practicing, which, you know, everybody does. How did you get to Carnegie Hall?
We got there through our university.
Oh,
Our
great.
university sent us.
Yeah, our College of Arts and Sciences supported the project, which was for us to go play there. And the dean of our school came to the concert of the College of Arts and Sciences. So it was it was just great we felt like even though we were there, we had a hometown crowd sort of in the audience.
That's so cool. I love that. Well, that's a great performance memory. So this is the season of inspiration for Music for a Great Space. And so we're asking each of our artists to talk about how they find inspiration or what inspires them. If you can think of how you find inspiration.
Well, I'm happy to go first. In my long life, I've found a lot of inspiration from beautiful performances and great performers. But as I'm getting to where I am now, I feel how what I offer can affect people and change their lives for the better. And so the ability for music to empower and inspire is one of my inspirations.
I would say I'm inspired by all through my life, but now also, of course, inspired by the music itself and the composers, what they were trying to express in the music that they wrote. And it doesn't really matter what era the music is from. We're playing Mendelssohn trios written in the 1830s, and the last piece we're playing was revised in 2013 or something. So there's quite a spread in the music, but the composers, I think, are trying to express some kind of universal truth, whether it's through a narrative or just concrete music. And when we rehearse together and we try to make decisions about how we want to play, I think we're always searching for what it was that the composer was really trying to convey. And so that's the first thing, is just being inspired by the music. But then in a group like this trio, we play together so long, and we have such a good communication within the group. There's that rapport that we have when we rehearse and perform. We might have made decisions about how we think we might want to interpret something, but if Chi-Chen plays something a certain way or Beth does a certain way, and then I'm the next one to have that melody, well, whatever I do is going to be informed by whatever they just did. And so there's, at once we're reviving a document, the music on the page that could be 100 years old, but we're also it's evolving in real time while we're performing it within the group. And I don't think I could ever get tired of experiencing that kind of it's such a complex cerebral thing, but your heart and emotions are involved too. So
I think they both said so well. I don't know what to add. Maybe I can just dig a little bit into the idea of being inspired by music. For me, the sound imagery can be very inspiring. And as my friends and colleagues know that besides playing modern piano, I also play period instruments, meaning the instruments the composers used for the music they created. And the sound world of old instruments is really different from that of modern instruments that we have now. So my mentor, Malcolm Bilson, who led me into this world of period instruments, is a very inspiring figure for me. And then I like to play piece on the instruments that the music was originally written for. And that give me a lot of inspiration, ideas. And we also talk about how the music would sound when it was performed on the period instruments. So the sound imagery to me is always something very interesting to explore. And I like to find a way to translate that onto the modern instruments. So the process itself also is very inspiring.